believe it's
I think
starting.
it's on. Okay.
Welcome back to day 2 of Wonder of WhataCon. Chad Hindall, and today I'm going to talk to you about a project I've been working on for, gosh, I guess 2 years now.
Yeah, it's been that long, almost in summer.
And this is my collaborator, color artist, voice of reason sometimes, Miss Debbyie Jollineau.
Hello. I don't know what to say about that right now. I don't know if you're asking questions. I think you're right. I think it has been about. I came on board 2 summers ago, so you were drawing before that for sure.
Yeah, it was. I started it in November, I guess, of the year before.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea what it was when I started it. I kind of just started drawing, shooting from the hip and going with like a meditative intrinsic story, and in hopes that it would find me. And through those first about 5 pages and showing them to my mom and stuff every day, she was very sick at the time. And she passed that winter, but it was finally after 25 odd years of drawing comics, she finally got it, kind of what I was going for, and that it wasn't going to be a traditional comic as it were. And so yeah, it's been a long haul. And yeah, the following summer I was looking for a flatter just to kind of speed things up for me, and Deb just went whole hog on it, and I was in love with the colors right away, and it was a sensibility that similar to the way I would have approached it myself, but fresh at the same time. And it's definitely been a joy along the process to get the color pages back, and it's very motivating, on my end to continue working.
Yeah.
Here I was going to show kind of the difference between the color and the line art.
So that's what I get is the first one, and then that's what it comes back as, right? But it's interesting because it's hard for me to know sometimes. I can't climb into your head, so I get as much direction as I can about what things are supposed to look like, and then I just have to make it up as I go along and hope it works for the story and works in terms of formal properties and color theory. So
yeah,
this is what I lean on fairly heavily. That
can kind of change, for you too, unfortunately, depending on the day or where I'm at with things. How much information I give you about some things.
Yes, there is that sometimes.
Sometimes I don't want to tell you anything because I'm curious to see what your gut reaction to it is,
Yeah.
But then there's been other cases, I think, where I've given you practically an essay on just one panel,
Yes, which is, it's helpful. I would say more information is probably more helpful though, because if there are certain things that are important to you to see, since you're constructing story and penciling and inking and getting to that point, you have that in your head already. And then I'm just trying to sort of, crank it up to 11. So
yeah.
Color wise, but it's also been a challenge because I don't know. I mean, should we talk about how I sort of fell into this? Like Alice going down the rabbit hole. I followed your White Rabbit post. Yeah, so Chad had posted on Facebook for a flatter, and I love doing color. I've always loved doing color, even when I do my own artwork. Color is a huge part of that, and so I messaged him. We were Facebook friends, but hadn't really communicated directly. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to ask a lot of silly questions because I don't know terminology, but what is that?" Basically, and he told me, and then said, "Hey, but I'll send you a couple panels and just do the whole color and see what happens. So so I did that, and then I ended up picking up the whole job of coloring instead of just flatting. So it worked out. But I'm also have a little bit of a handicap in that I don't have any experience necessarily in the comic industry. When I went to college and majored in art, it was originally drawing and painting, and with the general art major with the intent of maybe going into animation or drawing and painting, something like that. And then I picked
I'm
up.
going to show some of your stuff here. I'm
Sure.
going to show some of your work while you're talking. Keep talking.
Okay,
But.
yeah, for sure. So I did art education and came out of there and went straight into teaching from college. So I'm coming at this a little bit later than most people do, coming fresh out of college or not having formal training and picking it up in the industry. So so I have a lot of terminology that I don't know and a lot of ways of doing things that other people probably take for granted, and I kind of struggle with it. But I tend to look at everything through that lens of more fine artsy drawing and painting, and fortunately this digital medium kind of allows me the opportunity to do that versus having to think about just the 4-color printing process or how to manage that.
Well, yeah, and
a lot of those are spit paints. So some of those are very, very fast. Most of them are digital.
Daily Spit Paint is a group on Facebook that we're both a part of and follow, and it's super inspiring. And I'll use that as a springboard to talk to you about how has it been being an art teacher. And I know the last few weeks for you have been whirlwind in a lot of ways.
Have been interesting. Give me 1 second. Hang on. Okay. Yes, the last few weeks. So a lot of these paintings also are from Mermay that I participate in, and I use when I feel like I'm sort of stagnating on my own artwork, because sometimes it's really hard to sit down in front of a completely blank screen or a completely blank piece of paper and feel inspired. So I do better when I have some sort of prompt or idea of what I maybe want to go into, doing, and sometimes even just, with those spit paints, it's generally, it's a half hour where you crank on something, and sometimes I can't post them as spit paints later. I get inspired by a spit paint prompt, but I take too long. And then it's not one, I can't post it there, but I finish the artwork anyway, because, or I post an in progress and a later one, that stopping point. But yeah, the last few weeks have been interesting for everyone, but trying to teach from home. So I'm an art teacher, trying to teach from home on a platform that I'm not familiar with. So I just started Google Classroom about 4 days. I thought I had a certain platform that was going to work for me, and we were having technical issues with it. So I jumped ship to Google Classroom, and that's been working fairly well, but it's all new for me, and it's new for a lot of the kids. Some of them had experience with it, but a lot of them didn't. And so we're just doing everything remotely. And so I know a lot of people are posting and saying, I don't know what to do, I'm bored. And I keep being a little bit jealous of those people because the idea of having time I don't know what to do with is perplexing to me right now. I have too many things to do.
Yeah, I don't believe much in boredom, so.
There's also that too. I'm rarely bored, and if I am bored, it's generally that I can't decide which thing I want to do. I have a coworker who introduced me to the phrase paralysis by analysis. And I think that's very accurate. So I have this thing I want to work on, this thing I want to work on, this thing, and the end result is I can't make up my mind and I don't do anything. But not recently. That has not been a thing for me. So yeah. Yeah, and then I also have 3 children, so just the challenges of sort of trying to make sure that their learning is staying consistent and helping them with the things that they need help with, and doing that while simultaneously doing my job has been difficult, and trying to get my environment ready to even do something like that out of, and spend this much
Yeah.
time in it and make it productive, a productive workplace, you know.
Yeah, and you know, that's all on top of, you know, trying to constantly start, stop, you know, your a career of your own, whether it's,
Mhm.
you know, coloring with me or, you know, your own prints and stuff, which you're offering. And yeah, we were
Yeah.
both supposed to actually be together in person having this
I
conversation
know,
today. You
today.
know, so,
Yes. Today was supposed to be WonderCon, and I think I was greeted by a few pictures from past WonderCons, and while I know it doesn't compare to the really gut-wrenching things that are happening, it's still, you know, I'm grieving that a little bit today that we didn't actually get to meet in person and go do something that I've been consistently doing for the last few years. So
um, there's over the last year, aside from this book Leviathan, which I'm about to jump into, we've also worked on another project, which I don't really want to talk about. And
yes,
it was a
yes,
really gut wrenching experience, and it definitely took its toll on both of us. I think
yes,
mentally and physically and spiritually.
yes,
Um,
agreed.
so to all you kids out there, be careful what you wish for when it comes to work for hire stuff, and you know, be careful how you prioritize that over doing your own stuff, because um, the ends don't necessarily justify the means.
Yes, although I would also say that there's not an artist or an actor, you know, any kind of artist in the world who hasn't taken a gig that is less than exciting to them, you know. And sometimes on your
Yeah,
resume you need to put that you were the 3rd spear carrier on the left, right? And that's that's it. And it comes with a paycheck, and then
yeah.
you're grateful for the paycheck, and you take that, and then you move on.
Move on.
Um,
Yeah,
but you know, and in some cases you move on faster than in others, and you put that as far as you can into the rearview mirror. But yeah, it's they're the reality of being any kind of artist is that there are jobs that are not glamorous, and
yeah.
you know, that don't particularly inspire you, but they pay bills. So
You know, I'm still really proud of our turnaround on that. I mean, we did over 50 pages,
yeah,
you know, like in a 2 month period, you know, on top of families and kids and
right. And the
other
deadline
stuff.
was
So,
insane and unrealistic. And if there's one thing that I found from that whole experience, it's that I'm capable of doing more in a shorter amount of time than I thought I could when there's a deadline that belongs to someone else and not me. Because I don't have time to be a perfectionist and pick at every little detail and do all the tiny things that I normally would. It's just not there. And you have to say, okay, you know, I'm getting paid this much money for this amount of work. And then you have to kind of condense that into the hours that you have in the day, the deadline, and make it happen. So
I'll use that to parlay to Leviathan.
speaking of things that we did not have a time limit for, right?
No, but there was still kind of a set of rules to it.
Right.
You know, I really did try and keep these pages art wise to, you know, a day to a day and a half, you know, of work on my time, you know, including inks and stuff.
Right.
Um, you know, I wasn't using a lot of reference. I'm really just kind of going with um, how how it all comes together in my head, and hoping that works, and learning from that. There's other projects I'm working on where it is more reference heavy, and it is, on a technical level, probably more accurate illustration.
Mhm.
But there was an element of looseness, and that old kind of 80s and 90s comic feel I liked, where things were realistic but stylized. It didn't look like everything was taken as almost drawn off of a still frame from a Marvel movie.
Mhm.
Um,
There it goes. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Yes.
uh,
Now it's in focus.
the setup of the story is in a near future type of thing, and it's the rise of artificial intelligence has been prolific, and one of those artificial intelligences, called Leviathan, um, decides it wants to make a place for itself where it can grow and reproduce on its own terms, and finds a place that, on the level of machines registered as uninhabited, but it's actually a very large ghetto of refugee families and children that don't have electricity, and ends up being taken out by this artificial intelligence. Uh,
What?
Looking for the there we go.
I wasn't hearing you.
Jumping between folders here.
Ah.
So the idea that I'm gonna do for this is put it up on Comixology, Gumroad, Amazon for Kindle, all the various digital outlets that I can get it onto. It'll be issue 1 in color, and then also have the back matter of the black and white pages, some sketch material, and come into just over 50 pages for 99 cents.
Cool.
The hope is that we can, through that, kind of build an audience as we finish up issue 2, and by that time, hopefully all of this is over, and then we'll look at going to print, running a Kickstarter, or working with a publisher, however that ends up working out. But
Did it cut out? Oh, no.
did it?
Oh, I thought it did for a second. Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to get it out into the public. I mean, 2 years is a long time, so it'll be nice to actually have people look at it and get some feedback on it.
And almost everyone that I've been talking to this weekend has read it already and been
Okay.
super supportive.
Nice.
And they've been excited that finally going to birth this thing out there one way or another. So
yeah, I mean, we're fortunate in that we're in a time right now where everything's gone a little sideways, that we have all this technology to still move forward without needing to physically print and distribute right this second, Yeah, there's that.
this one I remember as like having kind of a interesting time explaining to you how I wanted to kind of capture the light inside of the blisters on his back and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah, there are some very, very specific things. It's one of the things I like about art in general is that you sort of end up becoming not an expert in everything, obviously, but you learn a lot more about certain things than you ever thought you would. And you research things according to a specific need. So I know the time when I did the sirens, where the car was kind of pulling up and coming around. I spent, I don't know, a week and a half kind of watching at night for people who had been pulled over and watching the sequence of, what is really happening with these lights, because you think you have an idea about it, but the reality of it sometimes is different if you don't, have a photographic memory, which I don't, and
Right.
capture it accurately. So I did a lot of, looking and seeing what that light actually looks like, and a lot of staring at when we did the panels that had the car, going, and then it was sequencing into different times of day. I was looking a lot at light qualities, during those times of day, and kind of noticing how much the asphalt turns into that sort of granulated gold color, against the side of the curb. So just looking in general at yes, that one. And trying to figure out, how do the lights play off somebody's face? What does that look like in a rearview mirror? What is, and then still make that work, because sometimes you just have to make it work with the artistic qualities too. So there's
We tried it. We tried that last panel there 3 different ways, I think, too.
Yeah, I think we did with the tracking of the lights. Yes. And another thing that I kind of get to do with these that's fun is, because I'm coloring digitally and I'm using layers, I can, color in, right, the non-inked parts, but I also have the option, which is what I did on the trails of those lights there, of just going over the whole entire thing that's been inked. And so I'll usually have a few layers on the top that supersede the inked parts, right? And that's something that people traditionally wouldn't have been able to do with regular art materials, in terms of inking or color, I mean.
See if I can match these pages up.
Yeah, that was another one.
Okay, I don't know if you can actually see the Eye of Agamotto screen on there or not, but
yes. Now I can. It's taking it when you page through, though. It's staying blurry for a little bit until it stays, and then it clicks into focus. But yes.
Yeah. This was a really interesting page. Still, I think this is one of the first pages I think I had you color. I remember for me it was very much going to be like kind of a make or break on whether it was going to work or not. And I still really, really love how this page came out. It has such a creepy kind of foreboding vibe to it.
Yeah, I remember having to tell myself, okay, you went darker. Okay, but go darker. But no, but go darker. Push the values. Make it go darker. I have a tendency to be a little afraid to push too far, and but for that kind of drama, you really need high contrast.
So here's the reveal of what the story is kind of about at the heart. Is it's a fresh take on the story of Pinocchio. And here we have Pino and the cricket. And I think it's just, you were able to capture a whimsicality and a lightness to it, even though it is really kind of twisted. And I'm really excited moving forward about kind of the breadth of where this story takes us. And it's a lot different than what people are expecting, or any kind of other classic take on Pinocchio. It's certainly its own kind of thing, and I think you really knocked it out of the park.
Thank you. Exciting to work on it. So looking forward to the new ones. You keep showing me panels. And I'm thinking about what I'm going to do with them. So
Yeah, it takes a bit of a different turn in issue 2. It's a little bit of a different palette, and then kind of wraps back around from issue 3 forward to things will be. So that pretty much
that kind of sums it up.
Sums it up. And thank you again. You can find
Okay.
Deb at random magic art on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. No, it's Debbyie Jollineau on Instagram. I should change it though.
Okay.
So it matches.
And you're offering prints, and I assume you would do commissions, you know, if somebody was interested in something.
Absolutely.
And we will keep you updated as we get this uploaded on when and where it will be available. And thank you for joining us and following along for Wonder What-A-Con.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Right now I need to figure out how to.
Cool.
Okay, bye.